Teachers do so many things, but what we associate is guided learning activities, lessons. They introduce activities integrating learning concepts, which integrates math, literacy, all the things that we consider the academics. In the first 7 years, the way kids, what do? We read to our kids, we listen to stories, and they internalize and they think about it and they build the characters in their head. And they don't realize, but there's a lot that they're learning. They're learning about, because the stories can be done so well and how we illustrate them. And sometimes we use puppets and sometimes we use, books, whatever. But they learn concepts through just understanding that. And so we integrate that every day. This is all curated and planned. Our teachers are incredible, but they have very intentional, and they're aware of their calling and each of their jobs associated with this calling. They're observers and guides. Like, what are observers? They're not just follow instructions, but they're noticing, okay, this is something this child is good at or struggling with, so I'm going to help them navigate that. I'm going to help foster that. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to share with you a day in the life of kindergarten at Woodlands Forest School. It's a day of magic in the classroom. We're going to go over what that looks like, the day-to-day for them, what the routines are. But overall, engaging activities rooted in nature and child-led exploration. We will walk through the daily rhythm and highlight how each experience support key developmental milestones. First, I want to talk to you about our educational philosophy. At Woodlands Forest School, our philosophy integrates evidence-based teaching that provide practical strategies for seamlessly blending academic, social, emotional, and learning, blending all of that. It's a well-rounded curriculum that fosters balance, a holistic growth. We are approaching the whole child. So part of that includes a physical environment. We're very intentional about creating this physical environment, integrating nature. It looks like it's just outside, but actually it's very thoughtfully designed, and with them in mind. If you notice, their height, even for them to interact. Engaging in appropriately challenging lessons rooted in the blend of the educational theories that support deep and meaningful learning. We're looking to develop loving children who love learning, not just kids who know how to follow instructions, although that's important. We're cultivating curiosity and inspiration through activities which are inside and outside, and you'll see as we move forward. Let's go to standards, milestones, and some of the pins of the program. While every child is unique and progresses at their own pace, the development follows some pretty predictable patterns. Our primary role as educators is to deeply know and understand your child and to connect to your child. We're meeting each child where they're at. And only through this understanding can we actually create an environment where they are, where it's conducive for their growth in all areas. Seeing children as whole individuals. They're not just kids that we're kind of ordering and line up and whatnot, but we're looking to inspire them to grow into people who love to learn and inspire them through varied activities. So these milestones, we follow the TEKS alignment. So the Texas pre-kindergarten guidelines and the Texas essential knowledge and skills, known as the TEKS in the education world for early childhood. This is like a guideline that states public schools. It's pretty standard. And if you're familiar with schools, this is, a lot of people say, are they TEKS? Yes, meaning there's a set of standards. Yes, we have our own approach, but not just for our accreditation, but to be in alignment with, say, regardless of where they end up going next, there's a set of skills and expectations. So one check mark in this is a social emotional development, fostering self-regulation, empathy, positive relationships through collaborative play and group activities. So how do we do that? The next is language and communication, encouraging oral language development, vocabulary expression, and early literacy through storytelling, songs, and nature-based conversations. And we're going to go into how that looks throughout. The next is cognitive and problem-solving skills. That is providing hands-on skills to solve problems. How do you tackle something? Instead of just giving them something on paper, they're actually doing things, and that promotes critical thinking, reasoning, and invites more curiosity. And then fine and gross motor development. We're integrating movement, outdoor play, and sensory activities. We do some of this inside, we do some of this in the classroom. They're very planned activities. They don't feel very planned to the kids, but it's all very intentional to help coordinate awareness and about how their body moves and just general body awareness. Also, emerging literacy and numeracy. That's like the beginning of foundations before they start to learn how to read and start to really learn math. Introducing foundational reading, writing, math concepts through play-based, interactive, and nature-based experiences. Through our rhythmic and balanced approach, we incorporate repetition, routines. Routines are very important regardless of your approach. That's a lot of how we reinforce learning. Exploration to provide children with a sense of security while fostering independence, a lifelong love of learning. Our curriculum naturally integrates these standards in a way that is developmentally appropriate. I think that's one thing that we do differently and very intentionally. Nowadays, you might hear kindergartners, they're already expected to do certain things. And while academics are very important to us, we first want to honor where they are developmentally. This is a science thing. We can try and force children before they're ready, but then we're missing certain things. So we are intentional in curating these experiences that are deeply connected to where they are developmentally. And they don't feel the stress. Kids shouldn't be stressed in kindergarten, right? They should be learning, almost not realizing that they're learning. And so we build that into the rhythm. So we are ensuring that children are not only prepared for future academic success, but also meaningful connection to life. It's hard to develop a love of learning if you start off stressed out, right? So our daily rhythm, let's talk about our daily rhythm. Since they learn primarily through hands-on experiences, our daily routine integrates lots of hands-on things. So the first, I would say, arrival and morning routine. What does that look like? We come in, we wash our hands, we greet one another, we organize our things. This fosters independence. Kids learn to be independent. I think this is a kind of season of life where they transition from mom and dad doing it for us over to, I can take care of myself. I can hang up my clothes. I can wash my hands. I can say hi to my friend. And it's a healthy independence, right? I think that's often why we notice kids whose first year at school, they struggle, they cry a lot because that attachment is there. So it's healthy for them to struggle with that, but to also that struggle, we help them through it. So they build that confidence. I can do this. I can walk to class, And so the milestones fostered when they're used to doing this daily include social, emotional. They're building confidence in themselves. I can do this, right? Communication, memory. They remember a routine. I know it's so simple, and sometimes we forget how valuable simple things can be, but just remembering the sequence of daily tasks. A 3 or 4 or 5-year-old saying, first I do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. As basic as that is, that's a foundational skill awareness to then kind of continue on with that level of confidence when they move on to math and counting and whatnot. Fine motor skills, obviously, I'm unzipping my jacket, I'm hanging up my backpack, all these things that we know we expect them to start doing at 3 and 4, but we're really pushing off an independence there. Buttoning, zipping, organizing. Basically, this whole part of their day is just kind of like let's setting the tone for responsibilities. I'm a big kid and I'm gonna have these responsibilities and I can feel proud of that. So then we move on to circle time. Circle time is so special. It's such a special time. It's a group time. I remember teaching in the classroom, we enjoyed circle time. But it isn't just another thing we do. It's such an important part of them. First of all, having this regular routine that they're used to, the transition, but also a community time. I know I get to sit down with my class. We get to do these things every day. We're singing songs, not realizing we're learning concepts. We're talking about what's today's weather? What day is this? All of these things that we're practicing every day build kind of good habits of daily self-regulation. Like, this is what I do every day, and these are my friends. And What's great is kids are learning with rhyming and songs and finger play and role playing. They're learning, talking about social customs, seasonal things, but it's just a good habit that kind of mirrors how we are as adults when we greet each other and spend time together and get to know each other. And they're practicing socially appropriate behavior, developmentally appropriate expectation regarding sitting together. This structured activity strengthens their areas of language and listening, cognitive movement, and social engagement. The cutest ever. And you see, it isn't just sitting, right? But they have routines. And I remember with my class, we did, okay, let's do a stretch, let's whatever. It's another thing. They know what to expect, but also it's a little different every day. But they don't realize they're learning, because while we're doing this, the teacher's also introducing concepts. We're talking about something. And that's what's great. They're absorbing information while developing these really great skills. So that's a really important piece of their day. The next piece I want to talk about is outdoor and indoor free play. So during free play, children engage in a variety of activities that nurture their physical development and cognitive development and their social development. It isn't just running and climbing, although that is very important. Physically, they climb, they balance, they're doing things on logs. They're allowed to pick up sticks and make piles. They're exploring with their bodies, with their minds. They're experiencing gravity. Ooh, I'm going to fall down that hill. They are working together to plan activities. Here, you go here. I'm going to run here. All of these things, it's an integration of physical development. If you notice kids who've never been here, and now the way they are on that zip line, it's like a level of confidence that maybe a lot of them didn't have. Another example, I like to watch them play and say, it's almost like, okay, I'm going to take these sticks and it's going to be a house. And, it's like they use the world around them to play, but that learning is, they're developing leadership skills. They're developing how to talk about hard things. Hey, no, that was mine and it's your turn. As small as that seems to us, actually it builds such a healthy communication relationship with them and with their friends and with their bodies. But they're able to do this both indoor and outdoor. These kind of problem-solving opportunities in different settings integrate all these wonderful things. So not only are they doing these social challenges where they're figuring out their role and whatnot, but they're getting dirty and struggling in a healthy way. We don't want them to suffer. We want them to struggle. Struggle builds character and the muscles of the brain that I think build confidence and resilience later. But so outdoor, the mud and the natural materials. Indoors as well, they have access to very thoughtfully prepared play centers filled with open-ended materials, shells, stones, fabrics. We're creating a very tactile environment. Fabrics to drape over, and here's a roof and here's a shawl and a scarf. When you watch them use what's around them, they don't need toys that were made specifically to be that thing. They just need things to make into what they're imagining, right? It's inviting the imagination. So this is just building 3D structures out of the pillows, or inviting them to use their imagination and like the symbolic make-believe play. This is a baby and I'm the mommy and you're the daddy and we're gonna cook. So girls are really good at that. But the taking turns, they're doing that inside and outside. These experiences strengthen their concentration too. They're able to be like, okay, I'm making this plan and I'm doing this. And while they're doing it, just fine and gross motor skills are happening. Their ability to engage in very purposeful play. They're already wanting to feel like I'm doing something, right? So it's great. So the milestones that that they don't realize that we're helping to foster there, more of the motor skills, jumping, balancing, running, the cognitive, the decision-making, being flexible, taking turns. Hey, it wasn't my turn. Okay, being able to negotiate a disagreement. For some reason, this is just very unnatural space for that to happen. Spatial awareness, decision-making, problems on, I got dirty, I fell down. Just opportunities, a lot of opportunities to practice the resilience. That social emotional cooperation, independence, managing fears. That's huge. That's one area that I'm afraid. It's like, instead of protecting them from the fear and no, don't do it. It's okay, let's help equip you, protect and equip. And so we're trying to intentionally create an environment where these kids are doing things that scare them a little bit, doing things that make them uncomfortable, taking risks, but in a healthy, safe way. So what does that mean? I'm scared to the zip line. I don't want to do it. Okay, don't do it. Or how about I stand right next to you the whole way, right? We're not going to force kids to suffer, right? But we really want to encourage that healthy push of the struggle builds character, builds confidence. Sometimes I tell my own kids, do it scared. I will be here. It's okay if you're scared. I will be here. You will never not be scared. I think the thing, being brave, telling the kids, it doesn't mean you're not scared. Don't wait till you're not scared. Being brave means you're doing it even when you're scared and you're asking for help, So anyway, creating these situations where they get to be uncomfortable, that healthy risk. I think that's one piece that's so important in how we integrate play. So overall, risk-taking in a safe environment, it's even here, problem-solving, resilience, and confidence. And you know that when you take a step that you were afraid to take and you come out and you get the endorphins and the oxytocin that comes from that, like, wow, what a confidence builder. And that kid's gonna go home and say, Mom, I did this. Wow, it's great. And you go home and you wanna do it again. And all of a sudden you have kids now where I go out with tours and they're flying on the zip line, right? So, and they didn't know, they don't remember that they were scared. So the outdoor play, as much as I think some systems think it's just a 20-minute recess, it's just no, it's such a huge important part of piece of their development and to encourage learning. And that's why it's not just a 20-minute recess. And so many people that are looking at kindergarten and saying, I want my kids to learn, but I don't want them to lose that time. We are preserving that. And not only preserving that, but using it to help foster their growth. Additional, more outside time, we integrate very specific gardening and animal care. This is a really great feature because gardening and animal care are very activity-oriented ways of learning. They learn how to be responsible for something. Already just being here at this school, we try to nurture an environment where like, this is my school. I'm proud to be here. I want to do things. I want to have responsibilities. They have a sense of stewardship, but the skills that they learn by understanding how plants grow, it isn't just, oh, let's pick a carrot and go home, but like, wow, we're going to plant the seed and we're going to watch it. There's this patience and steadfastness that comes with understanding the whole process of how food grows, right? Also with animal care, yes, they get to pet the animals, but they're helping scoop up and refill food and change water, collecting eggs, being a part of all of it, not just the collecting eggs part, but seeing these animals poop and, these animals need food and really understanding the whole picture it's a responsible way to expose them to animals because we want them to love animals and pet and love, but also we think they can handle understanding that it's not just fun. We want them to understand the world outside of themselves, more than just enjoying animals, understanding like, wow, being a good citizen of my community here, I have ownership and I am a part of making it great. And part of that is my responsibility. And it's so great because these kids like, I want to help. At home, you may ask them to help and it's different, but something about being a part of your peer group and we are going to do this together. We're a team. We're going to scoop up poop. We're going to clean up eggs. We're going to do whatever. And so they're doing all this wonderful stuff without realizing that they're also learning. So more of the same motor skills, lifting, digging, carrying soil, fine and gross motor. Their hands are getting dirty. They're getting dirt under their fingernails. I mean, that's good for your microbiome, but it's good for their, it's good for their discomfort. We don't want kids that aren't comfortable with being dirty and that, if you don't come home with a little bit of dirt on you, I'm like, what were you doing? But then sensory, right? Like understanding, having a memory. Oh, that's what dirt smells like. That's what it smells like. My hands smell this way when I've been working. There's something very connected to their humanity when that's how they're operating. Cognitive, this is just the concepts that they understand of the growth cycles, the cause and effect, understanding that I come, I'm going to put these seeds in a cup. We're going to put some water. I'm going to come back, and I have responsibility to help it keep growing and adding water. It's amazing how you can cultivate a real desire to take an ownership mindset by giving them little jobs, and not thinking less of them, not thinking them they're not capable. They're very capable. Kids are more capable than I think we've allowed them to be, especially nowadays, I've noticed. And so this is a place where they get to do things and say, wow, I did that, and nothing replaces that. You can teach a lot of things, but experience is what teaches confidence. Health, how it connects. Food, understanding that food and how we eat and how we move actually affects how we feel. That's so foundational and primitive, but for kids to actually understand that health isn't just, I go to the doctor when I'm sick or my mom gives me medicine, but it's like this responsibility. It's a part of what I do. It's really important. And then the environmental, they're stewards of their environment. They're connected. They feel a sense of ownership. Like I mentioned, being a good citizen of our community. This is my school. I'm proud of this school. I want to be a part of things. I want to do hard things. This is, it's an empowering mindset. Not, I don't know how. There's a lot of dirt. But like, yeah, I know how to do all this because I care about my school. So it's really important. One of my favorite times, and I think underestimated time, is lunchtime. If we're used to compulsory school and public school, we're used to the cafeteria. And I think the cafeteria can be great, and when you need to facilitate a gazillion kids. But in reality, it's a missed opportunity. Lunchtime is actually a really important time where we can teach kids not just how to sit down and eat, right? But we're inviting them to practice how to sit and enjoy this time together. This is important. Part of our culture is community, right? And such an important part of a community is how you share food, how you break bread, how you share routines. And lunchtime is a beautiful thing. Not only to spend time with your community, your peers, having conversation. Wow, what do you have to eat for lunch? My mom cut this, and oh, I've never had that. But also reinforcing the stuff that they're not aware of. It's a routine. At lunchtime, I wash my hands, I put away my stuff. They, organized way of doing it. There's so much they don't realize is actually planned that they're participating in to create this. I love the video to create this really relaxed, comfortable environment where they are experiencing, I think, such an important thing that we minimize sometimes. We think, oh, just put them in a cafeteria and be quiet. Gosh, do you remember silent lunches? I remember they had to be quiet and sit, and it's like they get 20 minutes of recess. They have to sit still. I think, of course, they need to learn how to behave. I think this small setting together in a classroom is the best way, and this is what I did in my classroom when I was teaching. Let's talk about table manners. It's us. So what do we say? We say our blessing. We say, thank you, mommy. Let's get our fork and knife out. Spoon. And tell me, everybody, and we'd make it a fun age. And who has a piece of fruit, So it's such a wonderful meal sharing. And please at home, meal sharing is such a wonderful time of learning how to enjoy each other, how to learn gratitude, but integrating that with just the things they don't realize they're learning, staying organized, having good hygiene. And what's great is here, our expectation is you open your own lunch, you put away your stuff, you wash your dish, you wash your hands, and it's great. You're watching these kids come and I know what to do, and I'm gonna wash my dishes and I'm gonna play. It's wonderful. So I know lunchtime is such a small part of the day, but it's a huge part if you let it and if you use it as a tool. It's very powerful. After lunch, there are, routines, and all day we have routines, but some of them include, like I said, washing your dish, washing your lunch pail, cleaning out your stuff. But additionally that, it's not just stuff that they do related to their stuff, right? Like they have their jacket, they have their put away, but they also have chores. Like I don't want to call them chores, but they're chores, they're jobs, right? And that's not a bad thing. I think we have a negative association with chores, but the reality is this is my school. This is our school, and I get to help because I'm a part of this school. So it's not just taking care of their own stuff, but they say, hey, we're going to clean this up. Let's go. let's take these rakes, let's take some brooms. And something about doing it together, I think, makes it a little more exciting. And the teachers do a wonderful job of curating these opportunities, like making them developmentally. We're not going to make them dig a ditch, right? Like, it's going to be developmentally appropriate, like let's all sweep. And one important thing about jobs, I think, that we cannot focus on the outcome. I remember when my kids were 4, the triplets were 4, I made them start making them make their bed every day. You make your bed every day. And I remember my mom saying, it doesn't look nice. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's not about the outcome. The outcome will come after the practice of time. As long as they do it every day, they will develop an understanding of, I've been doing, oh, wow, this is how I like it. And so it's not mine. It's not like do it my way. They developed a way of pride in their work, So it's not like, oh, Pato, you skipped a thing. No, he was sweeping. Good job, good effort. As he does it every day, he'll just get better at it. We're not going to be like, there's still crumbs. There's going to still be crumbs on the floor. They're 4 years old. They're 5 years old, but I think focusing on valuing their contribution versus focusing on the outcome, valuing their contribution and what they can do, having them recognize that you're important here. We value you. We want you a part of this. It establishes a stewardship mindset. This is my school. I'm so proud to be here. I want to do a lot here. So the milestones fostered here, we talk about numeracy, that early math, counting, sorting, classifying. When you're cleaning and you're putting things away, you're sorting. You're not just putting it away. Okay, I'm going to put the green things here and the blue things here. This is math. Motor skills, obviously, measuring, mixing, pouring, washing. Look at this washboard. I mean, this is like real work, right? This is hand coordination. And what's so funny is they thought it was fun. Like now doing laundry, like we'll see when they're teenagers, but right now, this is amazing because guess what? It's new and it's physical and they want to move their body and they see, ooh, the soap is bubbly. So like I said, the teachers curate beautiful situations in which these kids can do things and practice learning how to do things and being productive. But like I said, we're not grading the outcome. We're teaching how to care and take an effort. And so the cognitive, just understanding, integrating sensory, like, wow, my hands are wet. And when I do this, it gets soapy. Just understanding what is happening as I do it. And the early literacy piece is just the vocabulary of it. I'm washing, I'm scrubbing. So much of it before we learn to read is learning how to speak well and how to communicate with each other and being comfortable with that. And then obviously the social, emotional, mindfulness habits. This is everything that we do. We're integrating all of this in everything we do, right? So just the idea of caring, that social emotional piece is, hey, I'm working together with my friend and look, they're together in a tub. They're not in my own tub, it's my tub. No, they're like, hey, let's work together. Let's focus. You used to watch them kind of like really get focused on something and kind of fall into it. Right? Kind of allow the energy of it to go. And so it's so important there. The next thing is generally what we know more about what teachers do, right? Teachers do so many things, but what we associate is guided learning activities, lessons. They introduce activities integrating learning concepts, which integrates math, literacy, all the things that we consider the academics without it being academic. And so what does that look like? What that looks like is maybe they're learning language concepts while we're talking about ABCs and phonemics, that's sounds, how to speak out sounds, vocabulary and sight words, just awareness of the letters and understanding. And if they're at a place where they recognize and, we help them go further there. But we're not pushing it so hard that it becomes pressure in that sense. The language is more like building a relationship with the language so that as it develops into reading and writing, it's something they enjoy and it's secure. It isn't just based on tell me what to do and I'll do it, but like, I know how to read. I want to read. I want to write. And then art, that's, pretty self-explanatory, but we do it, I think, in amazing ways because we have so many opportunities. It's not just, like crayons and paint, although there's nothing wrong with that, but really the finger knitting, the weaving, sewing and painting and threading. There's so many And I mean, you can just see what I just did illustrating it. You're using your hands and fine motor skills at that age. It's such a huge difference between age 3 and 5. If you look at an x-ray of a 3-year-old versus a 5-year-old, you see the bones aren't even fused. And so it's really hard when we think 3-year-olds should be writing their names and using scissors. Not if you're looking at development, right? But the other things, what we do to strengthen their hands so that by the time their bones are ready, writing isn't stressful. It's kind of just a natural progression from what they've been doing. I mean, imagine I've watched them. It's amazing to me watching these kids do this knitting with their fingers. Like, wow, and how strong they are. These are going to become comfortable with writing, no problem. And scissors, no problem. When the time comes developmentally that their hand is actually strong enough, it's going to be great. They've already built so much confidence with their hands. Math, that's just following steps, sorting, understanding shapes, patterns in sequence, counting, and you do that inside and outside. There's a million ways, you don't even realize that they're practicing concepts of math when they're sorting and moving and organizing and they're counting and saying, bum, bum, bum. So it's great. There's ways that they're doing it while they're playing, but the teachers are creating guided activities that way. That's more of what we associate with like traditional learning, and that's happening every day as well. But all of that includes also, so the part of their day, another part of the day, which I love and what I think is really important, is the end of the day. But one thing included, we have kind of a second circle time as we close the day. And throughout the day, we integrate storytelling, right? The teachers are really good at using, because I think one thing in the first 7 years, the way kids, what do? We read to our kids, we listen to stories, and they internalize and they think about it and they build the characters in their head. And they don't realize, but there's a lot that they're learning. They're learning about, because the stories can be done so well and how we illustrate them. And sometimes we use puppets and sometimes we use, books, whatever. But they learn concepts through just understanding that. And so we integrate that every day. And how we do that, how does it help? There's language. A lot of the stories are rhyming. Rhyming is a great way to help with memory. Verbalizing thoughts and ideas. Oh, wow, this girl in this book had this experience and I understand that experience and I can talk about it now when I go home. I remember one of my little ones, she said, I read this book and she was a ballerina and her feet were this and that. And so they're not just telling you what they learned, but I think they're relating a little bit. They're understanding, oh, wow, Angelina had her shoes was this way, So there's so much that invites the language. Maybe in that moment, they're just sitting and listening to the story. But what it does is it creates this fertile environment where they start thinking a certain way and they start communicating. So it's so important. Keep reading, obviously, to your kids. But the cognitive as well, the imagination, the concentration, the memory, the visualization, like we talked about. They've got a story in their head. I mean, if you love reading, you have a story of what your favorite characters look like, right? That way when we see the movie, we get mad. But like you see, they're doing that already too. And what a wonderful way, because it's just adding more color and dimension to their brain as they build how to think about things. Social, emotional, sharing this time of day, the storytelling, and I'll talk more about the closing, emotion regulation, building character, virtues, what are our values. So the closing, I want to talk about that. It's like a second circle time, connecting. Let's wind down. Let's talk about our day. What was great? I used to do this thing in my class. Give me good news. What was some good news from the day? What was something you enjoyed? How were you a good friend today? Teachers are going to do it different, but that second circle time, it's like a fellowship time, but also it's a very healthy developmental way to create a good pattern and rhythm of their day where they get to wind down, create a good, healthy, natural transition. Like at home, we do it at dinner, maybe, like we sit at the table with my kids, tell me highs and lows, what's one good and one high, just that practice, the practice of sitting and having that time together is not only very healthy, and I think helps you receive a more regulated child after a full day. But I think just another healthy practice of, even if you're not doing a group, if you sit down and kind of reflect on your day, that's a healthy practice of a strong mind, right? And so them doing that in a group together and having it modeled for them by the teacher talking about, share a highlight of your day. I noticed this today. Good job. It's just so many different ways to have really healthy communication and relationships, right? Because they will practice that. They'll come home and talk about it in that way that they received it healthily to you. So the milestones include communication, like we talked about, just verbalizing. This was hard today, but I get to come back tomorrow and do it again, right? Another thing about that, I don't know if they call it second circle time. I call it second circle time, but we get to review the day and then make commitments for the next day. I say, tomorrow we're going to come back and we're going to sit together. And so I would sing a goodbye song to kind of like end lightly, because sometimes you discuss challenges from the day. This was hard today. We struggled with this, but these are commitments I'm going to make to do better tomorrow. This is something I'm going to do. So it's a really, really healthy way to transition, because as we know, this age transitions can be kind of hard. So as you notice, all of this is such a wonderful experience for the student, but the teacher is doing all of this. And it looks easy, right? I don't think it looks easy, but the teachers are making it look so effortless sometimes, but this is all curated and planned. Our teachers are incredible, but they have very intentional, and they're aware of their calling and each of their jobs associated with this calling. They're observers and guides. Like, what are observers? They're not just follow instructions, but they're noticing, okay, this is something this child is good at or struggling with, so I'm going to help them navigate that. I'm going to help foster that. The best teachers know their children and make that their goal, individually, culturally, what's going on in their home, how they respond to certain things, developmentally understanding where they're at, so they can appropriately set them up for success with some of their lessons and whatever. They know their child at a way that no standardized tests can ever do, and that's why we don't do that. That's not a teaching tool. And it certainly doesn't serve the student. As teachers, we thrive to create connection-based learning. And we know this, that you do better, I do better, everyone does better if you're learning from someone that cares about you. If my coach or my boss cares about me, I can feel it. And it affects the way I'm motivated. It affects the way I feel confident, or my anxiety, or whatever, right? It affects the way I'm willing to be uncomfortable, to take risks, to learn, right? Because I trust this teacher. This teacher loves me. And so even when I'm scared, I'm gonna, there's so much there, that unspoken emotional connection that is very foundational to how they get to learn. And that area is so intentional, these teachers. So they're observers and guides. They step back and watch. They see, allowing the children to explore. We're not just like controlling kids, letting them explore, but stepping in when needing support. They're facilitators of learning. So all the things we associated with academic learning, math and literacy and science, they facilitate healthy and fun ways to give these valuable and important concepts, creating situations that are conducive to naturally learning these things. Because we're not just learning for our kids to learn, we want our kids to love learning and to want to learn more about math and want to learn more about why and the science and all of that. So what does that mean? Intentionally, we're going to walk through this path because I know there's pine cones there and we're going to go pick them up. It isn't just everything that looks so beautiful and effortless for this child. This teacher has done such a great job planning. And so we're really thankful for that. They're social navigators. They guide them as they learn and practice relationship skills. Now, we do as much as we can, just by virtue of being in a group of peers and, just other kids, older or younger. It gives you opportunities for social learning, right? So we don't want to interfere too much in how that naturally occurs, but we do, as guides, the teachers are really mindful about helping them navigate the hard stuff. Instead of saying, no, you shouldn't, say, oh, how did that make you feel? They can solve this problem together. Huge skills. But they have children build friendships, resolve conflicts, practice cooperation, guiding them with empathy toward resilience. So not just, hey, don't do that, and then kind of stop, but hey, ooh, ow, how would that make you feel? How that must have hurt, right? Kind of building an awareness that creates good relationships that they create themselves rather than behavior checking. And obviously safety mentors, teachers are practicing safe practices. So we're not just, throwing knives at them, but also helping the kids be aware, to take risks with preparedness and safety. So it's a balance. We're balancing preparedness. We're balancing independence. We want that independence, but we're always gonna be mindful. We don't want your kids to break their legs here. And then creators of joy. It seems like the fun part, but it actually requires a lot of thought too, making sure that these children are receiving that excitement and energy. I remember when my teacher would sing or play the guitar or whatever, I'd like, I'd be so excited, using songs, games, movement, making it fun and exciting, weaving the knowledge through the fun is what helps build the love of learning. And then being a bridge between school and home. This is a huge piece which integrates relationship and communication. Our responsibility and your responsibility. We're partners in architecting your child's education. We are working together, right? You are the parent, but we are facilitating their learning in classroom. And so we kind of take ownership of making that a really powerful a relationship. It would be such a wasted thing if we didn't actually integrate. So we keep constant documentation of the child's development and open communication with parents. You need to know what's going on with your kid. Not every single day. I mean, the reality is you have to let go, but we celebrate their growth, or we help them with their challenges. We want to be involved together because we are partnering in your child's development and education. But above all, we cultivate wonder, connection, and hopefully a lifelong love of learning. That is the goal. The goal isn't just, although this is important, that they're ready for the next thing. That's a question we get. Are they going to be ready for first grade? Are they going to be ready? We believe so, absolutely. We're just taking an approach that doesn't rush the childhood piece of it, right? We want to preserve that. We want them to enjoy learning. It's terrible when you see a second grader by the time and like, oh, I'm already tired. No, we want to get to a point where kinder was amazing and it helped propel me with confidence into the next thing. So a day in a kindergarten classroom, as you can see, is filled with real life, meaningful moments that nurture growth. It is, as much as it may be fun for the child, it is all very intentionally curated. It's all very, the routine, the honoring habits and building that rhythm, it honors their development. We are helping develop a love of learning while preserving their childhood. That's really the core of what kindergarten is for us. And we strive to honor the essence of their childhood and not rush them through. Because once that piece is over, life just gets harder, right? And those things, it isn't just we're saving it for fun. We believe it's important. We believe developmentally it's important for them to have those experiences and to enjoy learning. So in a world that often rushes them forward, we embrace the beauty of slowing down, allowing them to savor each moment, discover their own rhythm, and build a deep, lasting connection with the world around them. Thank you very much.